Zambia's Bill 7, the 13 constitutional changes every Zambian must know before 2026 elections. Zambia is about to enter one of the biggest constitutional shifts in years. 13 amendments, each one capable of reshaping how power works, how leaders are chosen, and how citizens interact with the state. Some call it progress. Some call it dangerous. But almost everyone agrees, these changes are huge. Today we break down the 13 amendments in simple language. What they mean, why they matter, and why many experts believe they should be supported. Before you form an opinion, you deserve the full truth. And that's exactly what you're getting tonight. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. Well, it's been quite an eventful week here in Southern Africa, hasn't it? But today we need to talk about something that could fundamentally reshape Zambian democracy as we know it. Picture this, a government swept into power on promises of democratic reform. A president who campaigned against constitutional manipulation. Citizens who danced in the streets, believing that finally, the people's voice would be heard. And now, barely 4 years later, those same citizens watch in disbelief as 211 parliamentary seats replace 156, as by-elections vanish into thin air, as the very constitution they were promised protection becomes malleable. What happens when the reformer becomes the thing he once opposed? When a bill that was declared unconstitutional by the highest court in the land is resurrected through a technical committee? When Catholic bishops, men and women of God who typically stay above the political fray, feel compelled to lead protest marches to State House? When whispers circulate through parliamentary corridors of 3 million kwacha changing hands, MP by MP, vote by vote? What happens when 13 seemingly innocent constitutional amendments threaten to tilt an entire electoral playing field before the first ballot is even cast in 2026? Is this democracy evolving, or democracy being dismantled, one amendment at a time? And perhaps the most chilling question of all, if Bill 7 passes, will the 2026 elections even matter? Factual foundation, background and timeline. The revelation came to light in March 2025, when President Hakainde Hichilema and his Minister of Justice made a stunning announcement just over a year before the scheduled 2026 general elections. They would be amending Zambia's constitution. This was the same Hakainde Hichilema who, back in 2021, rode a wave of democratic hope into office. His United Party for National Development had promised comprehensive constitutional reform to make the supreme law more democratic, more inclusive, more responsive to the people. It was a familiar promise. Every new Zambian president had made it. And like clockwork, once settled into State House, that interest had always dissipated. But in March 2025, something changed. Or perhaps, something needed to change. By May 2025, the government had moved with remarkable speed. The Constitution of Zambia, Amendment, Bill No. 7 of 2025, popularly known simply as Bill 7, was introduced in the National Assembly. The document was substantial, 13 major amendments touching everything from the size of parliament to who could run for local office, from how vacancies would be filled to when by-elections could be held. The reaction was immediate and volcanic. Civil society organizations erupted in opposition. The Law Association of Zambia called for the bill's withdrawal. Opposition parties cried foul. Even before the bill was officially published, two opposition MPs, Munir Zulu and Celestine Mukandila, had already filed a challenge with the Constitutional Court, arguing that any executive-led constitutional change without transparent public participation violated the very constitution it sought to amend. By June 26, parliamentary debate had grown so heated that observers described it as chaotic. MPs accused each other of selling out democracy. Civil society groups held emergency meetings. Traditional leaders expressed concern. And then, on June 27, 2025, just one day after the parliamentary fireworks, the Constitutional Court dropped its bombshell. The court ruled that Bill 7 was unconstitutional. The government had failed to meet Article 79's requirement for wide public consultation. Any constitutional amendments, the justices declared, must be people-driven, not imposed from above. President Hichilema, perhaps sensing which way the wind was blowing, had actually announced he would pause the process the day before the court ruling. He promised wider consultation. He promised a technical committee. He promised to listen. But then something curious happened. By October 2025, a 25-member technical committee had been established, but civil society leaders immediately questioned its composition, dominated by government loyalists. The Catholic Church warned against rushing the process. And in private meetings, according to political analyst Sishiwa, MPs from the main opposition party were reportedly being offered substantial financial incentives to support the amendments when they returned to Parliament. Bill 7 was supposed to be dead. The Constitutional Court had killed it. But like a political phoenix, it was being resurrected, repackaged, but fundamentally unchanged. And with each passing week, as Zambia moved closer to August 2026, the urgency became more palpable and the opposition more desperate. Direct evidence. Let me share with you what some of Zambia's most respected voices have said about Bill 7. And I want you to listen carefully, because these aren't political operatives or partisan hacks. These are lawyers, bishops, academics, and civil society leaders, people who have dedicated their lives to Zambian democracy. Archbishop Ignatius Chama, president of the Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops, addressed the media with words that carried both frustration and warning. Listen to what he said. On October 1st, Catholic bishops wrote a pastoral letter speaking against government's decision to take to Parliament Bill 7 of 2025. We heard the Constitutional Court's ruling about what government was supposed to do by consulting the people about Bill 7. Fortunately, the president said he would not continue with Bill 7, and we were all in one accord that it's not only government that needs to make a decision on behalf of the people. However, it didn't take time. We heard in the National Assembly that Bill 7 is not dead and that it would be resurrected until enacted into law. The Archbishop continued, and you could hear the concern in his voice. The world will not come to an end if this process doesn't end before the 2026 elections, because it has clearly shown that the government wants Bill 7, which is dead, to be enacted before the 2026 elections. This is not how it is supposed to be. We must all be truthful if we're to serve the people. By doing things in a rush, we've turned into a country that wants to change the constitution each time there's a change of government. We become a country that changes the constitution in line with what government wants, and not what people want. Think about that for a moment. When the Catholic Church, an institution that traditionally maintains careful distance from partisan politics, feels compelled to organize protest marches, something profound is happening. Father Dr. Gabriel Mapulanga, director of Caritas Zambia, put it even more bluntly. Opposing Bill 7 does not mean we hate the president. It means we are defending our democracy. If the amendments are good, they can wait until after 2026. But perhaps the most detailed criticism came from Professor Nick Cheeseman, Professor of Democracy at the University of Birmingham, and Professor O'Brien Kaba from the University of Zambia. Professor Kaba warned, if constitutional changes are perceived as being politically motivated rather than people-driven, they will fail to endure. And then there are the allegations that have sent shockwaves through Zambian politics. Historian Dr. Sishiwa, in a detailed analysis, made claims that, if true, would represent corruption on a staggering scale. He wrote, this money is to be paid in 2 installments of K1.5M before and after the vote. For perspective, the PF were offering K800,000 to each MP who agreed to support Bill 10 in 2020. Hichilema's decision to raise the bribery amount by nearly 4 times indicates that the president is desperate to succeed where his predecessor failed, or that the cost of buying an MP, like the prices of other commodities in Zambia since then, has gone up considerably, perhaps due to inflation. Dr. Sishiwa continued. So compromised are some of the legislators that at least 10 MPs from the main opposition party have reportedly accepted the first installment, and more are lining up their pockets for the payment they think can help finance their re-election campaigns. 3 million kwacha per MP 10 opposition legislators allegedly already paid. If even a fraction of these allegations is accurate, we're not talking about constitutional reform anymore. We're talking about the systematic purchase of democracy itself. Civil society activist Laura Mitty, one of Zambia's most prominent pro-democracy voices, captured the sentiment of many when she said, "It'll be HH's constitution, not the people's." Deeper analysis, implications and reactions. So what exactly is in Bill 7? What are these 13 amendments that have provoked such fierce opposition? Let's break them down, one by one, and examine not just what they say, but what they mean. Amendment 1, expanding Parliament from 156 to 211 seats. On the surface, this sounds reasonable. More constituencies mean more representation, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Critics, including Transparency International Zambia, point out that the new constituencies are being created predominantly in UPND strongholds, western, northwestern, and southern provinces. According to leaked internal strategy documents, this could add up to 20 additional UPND seats in parliament before a single vote is cast. That's not democratic expansion, that's gerrymandering with constitutional authority. Amendment 2, Mixed Member Proportional Representation System. This introduces a new electoral model where constituency seats use first-past-the-post voting, while additional seats for women, youth, and persons with disabilities are allocated through proportional representation based on party performance. Amendment 3, reserved seats, 20 for women, 12 for youth, 3 for persons with disabilities. The government markets this as inclusivity. Civil society calls it gender washing, using progressive language to mask authoritarian intent. Why? Because these seats aren't elected by the people, they're appointed by political parties based on overall vote share. In practice, this means party elites handpick loyalists. As Transparency International Zambia noted, this risks consolidating power and silencing marginalized voices. Amendment 4, party-appointed replacements instead of by-elections. This is perhaps the most controversial change. Currently, when an MP dies or resigns, a by-election is held. Voters choose the replacement. Bill 7 changes this fundamentally. The political party that held the seat simply appoints someone new. No election. No voter input. Just internal party politics. The government argues this saves money and reduces political instability. Critics argue it removes accountability. If an MP knows they can be replaced by party machinery rather than facing voters, who are they really accountable to? The people who elected them, or the party bosses who can remove them? Amendment 5, no by-elections within 180 days of general elections. This prevents by-elections from being held half a year before general elections. The rationale is efficiency. The concern is democratic accountability. Amendment 6, unified 5-year terms for parliament and councils. Harmonizing terms sounds administrative, but it also means local government cycles perfectly align with national politics, potentially making it harder for opposition parties to gain footholds between general elections. Amendment 7, reduced qualifications for secretary to cabinet from 10 years experience to 5 years. The government frames this as promoting meritocracy. Skeptics wonder if it's about installing loyalists who haven't been in the system long enough to develop independent power bases. Amendment 8, Attorney General and Solicitor General continue until replacements appointed. This ensures continuity in legal positions between administrations. Less controversial than other provisions, though critics note it could allow holdovers to remain in sensitive positions longer than intended. Amendment 9, revised definitions of child, adult, and youth. This actually addresses real confusion. Currently, the Constitution defines a child as someone who has attained or is below the age of 18, which could technically include 18-year-olds. Bill 7 clarifies, a child is below 18, an adult is 18 or above, and youth is 18 to below 35. This aligns Zambia with international standards like the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Amendment 10, specified timelines for election petition deadlines. Another relatively uncontroversial administrative clarification designed to ensure disputes are resolved efficiently. Amendment 11, inclusion of MPs in local councils. This adds constituency-based MPs to local council membership. Supporters say it improves coordination between local and national government. Critics worry it increases MP workload and blurs the separation between levels of government. Amendment 12, removal of 2-term limits for mayors and council chairpersons. Currently, local government leaders can serve 2 terms maximum. Bill 7 removes this limit entirely. While the presidency maintains its two-term limit, local strongmen could now entrench themselves indefinitely. Amendment 13, Presidential Power to Dissolve Parliament. This isn't entirely new. Presidential dissolution power has existed before. But Bill 7 refines and entrenches it. If Parliament cannot effectively govern due to failure to carry out legislative functions, the President can refer the matter to the Constitutional Court. If the court agrees within 7 days, the President must dissolve Parliament and call elections within 90 days. This sounds reasonable on paper. But as civil society groups point out, it concentrates enormous power in one person's hands. Who defines cannot effectively govern? What if Parliament is simply exercising legitimate opposition oversight? The potential for abuse is significant. But beyond the specific amendments, there's a larger pattern here. As Professor Nick Cheeseman wrote, many of these changes could enable the government to all but guarantee itself a majority in the next elections scheduled for 2026. The timing is everything. Why rush these amendments through in 2025, just months before elections? If they're genuinely about improving democracy, why not wait until after 2026, when there's no suspicion of partisan manipulation? Haibai Hamadudu of the Party for National Unity and Progress captured this perfectly when he warned, "Any amendments that are not grounded in widespread consensus will be viewed with suspicion." And that's exactly what's happened. Even Zambians who might support some individual amendments now view the entire package with deep skepticism, not because of what's in it, but because of how it's being pushed through and when. There's also the economic context. As political commentator Thandai Uketti's Ngoma wrote, "Zambia's problem is not the constitution, it's the economy. Families can't afford a bag of Mayalai meal. Bus fares have shot through the roof. Unemployment is breaking spirits across the country. Farmers are still waiting for fertilizer. And small businesses, once the backbone of our nation, are collapsing one by one. While the people cry for bread, the government offers them a constitutional amendment." This disconnect between what citizens need and what government prioritizes has fueled the anger surrounding Bill 7. It's not just about constitutional law, it's about broken promises, economic hardship, and the sense that political elites are playing power games while ordinary Zambians suffer. The questions now are profound. Can Zambia's democratic institutions hold? Will the Constitutional Court's ruling be respected, or will technical committees and political maneuvering circumvent it? Will MPs resist the alleged financial incentives, or will 3 million kwacha prove more persuasive than democratic principles? And ultimately, what kind of country will Zambians wake up to on the morning after the 2026 elections? Thank you so much for watching this investigation into Bill 7 and the 13 constitutional amendments that could reshape Zambian democracy. This is a critical moment for Zambia, and it's essential that every citizen understands what's at stake. I want to hear from you. What do you think about these amendments? Do you believe the government's claims that this is about inclusion and better representation? Or do you share the concerns of the Catholic Church, civil society, and opposition parties that Bill 7 is a power grab disguised as reform? Are you a Zambian watching this? How do you feel about your constitution being changed just months before you're meant to vote? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video with every Zambian you know, whether they support the government or oppose it. This issue is too important for partisanship. This is about the future of your democracy. And if you're not Zambian but you care about African democracy, I encourage you to share this widely. What happens in Zambia doesn't stay in Zambia. These patterns, last-minute constitutional changes, gerrymandered constituencies, weakened accountability mechanisms, they can spread. Democracy doesn't die in dramatic coups anymore, it dies in technical committees and amended clauses and parliamentary votes taken in the dead of night. We'll be continuing to follow this story closely as we move toward the 2026 elections. Will Bill 7 pass? Will the opposition hold firm? Will Zambian citizens demand their voices be heard? Subscribe to InspirAfrica Official, hit that notification bell, and we'll keep you updated every step of the way. I'll be back tomorrow with more stories from across our beautiful continent. Until then, stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, democracy is never guaranteed. It must be defended every single day. I'm Nakash, and this has been InspirAfrica Official. Take care, everyone.